Welcome to Consulting Mastery, where we help B2B consultants master the business of consulting. I'm Carrie.
And I'm Ahmed. Join us as we explore the art of delivering outstanding client value, earning a higher income, and thriving in today's marketplace. We see a lot of business owners, consultants in our mastermind programs get really stuck on making decisions out of a fear of what the long-term consequences are going to be of those decisions. Came up today. Tell us the story.
Yes, so today's story was we're on a call and our clients have the opportunity to bring any question they want to this conversation. And you and I are there as our, a brain trust of their peers. And so basically they bring anything to us, whatever it might be, and we work through it together. And the question today was, to paraphrase, I don't know what I want my business to look like. What should I do? And this was someone who's been working with us for quite some time and who has made incredible gains in terms of their perspective on their business, in terms of the actual growth of their business. They're seeing opportunities that they haven't seen before. And because they're in that space where they are really having to grow their mindset around what their business could look like beyond what they had initially, which was a, solid but pretty limited view of in terms of the amount of impact that they could have and the money that they could make, they are feeling kind of destabilized. And they're also at a place in the growth of their business where they need to start making decisions about hiring people and implementing systems. And those questions are proving to be really challenging because there's this underlying current of, what if I make the wrong decision? What if the solution I find tomorrow doesn't apply in the, end game vision, whatever that is, of this company that I'm building? And it was a really great conversation, and one that, because every single person on the call immediately kind of jumped on board and, put up their hand and said, yeah, I have this problem as well. I think one that's absolutely worth taking to a broader audience.
I mean, and right away, one of the flaws in that kind of thinking is, what if I make the wrong decision? We did a whole episode on this, right? The idea that decisions are not permanent, and you cannot strictly measure or judge the quality of a decision based on its outcome. You might make the right decision and have a bad outcome, or make the wrong decision and have a good outcome, right? And so I think that's one area where people get stuck quite a bit is, well, what if I make the wrong move or it doesn't set me up for where I'm trying to go? Well, you don't really know until you make the move. So it's almost like, make the move and then you'll find out. But at the same time, and I think what came out of that conversation today was interesting because everybody kind of acknowledged, you're not going to know what your business is going to look like. You don't have a crystal ball. You might have a goal, you might have a vision, but you don't know with a high degree of certainty in 5 or 10 years what your business is going to look like, either in terms of size, structure, business model, team, offer, pricing, all those things. You just don't know. So, I think it's important to have a vision that you're working towards. But the mistake a lot of people fall into is thinking that they have to have every single step between where they are right now and their ultimate goal or vision completely mapped out in order to have confidence to take the next step. And I think, the metaphor of, an airplane going from one destination to another is an apt one to use here. Airplanes don't fly in a straight line. They're constantly making little micro adjustments on the flight path based on the wind, etc. Right? I'm no pilot. I don't know the details, right? But I've heard the metaphor, and
I'm sure the wind has something to do with it.
Yeah, but the point is, there's no straight line, and maybe that's the thing, right? Is that probably, especially earlier on in business, you might lull yourself into believing there's a straight line to your goal, and if you just get rid of that expectation and acknowledge that it's a zigzag, it's a mess. There's zigzags and there's spirals. Right? The graph is a complete disaster. There's no trend line at all. But if you keep moving forward, you'll eventually get there. But I think you take the pressure off every little and major decision along the way.
Well, and we can take that even more broadly. You don't know what your business is going to look like 10 years from now. I would also suggest that you don't know what you're going to look like 10 years from now. If you think back to, 10 years ago, Ahmed, if I think back to 10 years ago, Carrie, and tried to predict where I was right now, I would be wrong. Everybody would be wrong. And so what we see, and specifically with this client that we're talking about, is as you grow and change and develop and evolve, so does your vision. And that's okay. There is still likely to be, the North Star, the kind of end game that you're looking towards, but even that will shift, right? Even that will change over time in different seasons of your life. Your vision about what you can accomplish is going to get bigger. You might decide to contract. There are definitely going to be, key values and key, kind of deal breakers or must-haves that will always exist and are likely to be consistent along the path. But anything beyond those also will change. So your market will change. Yes, you will also change. And so you don't want to do silly things. You want to make, the next best decision for the amount of time that you can see in front of you. You don't want to get into something that can't be reversed. Very few things, fall into that category. But I think it's just taking pressure off entirely. Like, yes, set your goals. Yes, be clear about where you're heading, but also have enough flexibility that as things shift, so does your view.
That was a really powerful statement. This idea that if you asked yourself, if you considered where you thought you'd be 10 years ago today, you'd be wrong. I think I'd be right. However, it's a really powerful question. I think, like, headline wise, I probably was right, but there's all this detail in terms of like who I am and what I believe and what it looks like that I never could have predicted,
Mhm.
which is really interesting because if you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself today to make decisions that are going to impact you 10 years from now, I mean, on the one hand, you alluded to this, you don't even know what you're going to want in 10 years, right? Like, so another way I think about what you just said is if you consider how much you've grown in the last 10 years and how what this is 100% true for me, what I care about now and what I want now is very different than what I cared about and wanted or thought I wanted 10 years ago. And to the extent that you keep growing as a human being, which is certainly our hope for all of you, right? What you think you want right now might not be the same. In fact, it's probably guaranteed to be different. So then why make moves today to set yourself up in 10 years to when your standards are going to be different? Your preferences will be different. Your desires will be different. I mean, to me, a lot of it comes down to, and I'm the last person to be against planning, obviously, and working towards a goal. Like, I'm all for those things, but I think there's an element of, the only real moment in time is now. The past is a figment of your imagination. The future is yet to come. What you have in front of you is now. And I think a lot of people don't place enough value and emphasis and weight on the now. There's too much on the future.
Well, and what it does, because I don't think the issue here is making a decision because of what it's going to do in 10 years. What tends to happen instead is you just get paralyzed. You just stop. Because deep down inside, there's no way to look that far ahead. And we're using 10 years, which is extreme, right? Let's not even go that far. Even a year from now, there are decisions you make today that you may need to back out of in the next 12 months. The challenge, and this is what was happening in the conversation today, is just getting so hung up on trying to figure out something that is impossible to figure out that you just don't do anything at all. And that's what we need to avoid. all of this, all of these decisions, this whole process is all about create a hypothesis, take action, which is your experiment, learn from it, and move along. And then recognize, as we've been saying, that the conditions of your experiment will also change. It's a terrible scientific environment to be in, but that's the reality that you're living in. And it's just all about cycling through these things, one after the other, until, to your point, in a probably quite roundabout, up and down, left and right kind of way, you land.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because, initially when I thought about this conversation, when we were in it, certainly, and when we were about to hit record on this, I was thinking, well, you don't know what your business is going to look like in 10 years or some amount of time because there's so much outside your control: the market, the economy, competition, blah, 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 blah. And I hadn't even considered that although the external environment will guaranteed change, your internal environment will also change. You will change. Your preferences will change. Your life stage in 10 years will be different. Your circumstances will be different. What you want will be different. And so I think you can kind of save yourself some grief by pretending to know what you're going to want, because you don't, and focus more on the immediate, not at the expense of having a long-term vision, but just simply releasing yourself from the expectation that every move you make now will get you closer to that vision.